What's going on, Hashoshi? Very nice to have you on the channel, and I'm excited to talk about our topic today, which is, of course, that the Wall Street Journal has declared the bear market over. So
Man.
celebratory, right? We can all we can crack open a White Claw right now.
Yeah, I guess the pressure's off.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing.
Well, I'm definitely glad to be here and to join. We've been working on this for a while, so I'm stoked we got to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been chatting for a while. We're both so busy, so I'm glad we got a chance to finally catch up. Why don't you introduce yourself for people who maybe aren't familiar with your channel or familiar with you? Let us know a little bit about who you are and what you're up to here in the space.
Awesome, man. Thanks for that opportunity. My name is Forrest. I run the YouTube channel Hashoshi on YouTube. My full-time job these days is developing dApps. I do a lot of work with Ethereum. I've done some work with Quorum, Tron, a bunch of different protocols out there. And my passion is crypto and innovative tech. So I love working in this space and helping build stuff. So on YouTube, I talk a lot about the tech and how it works, but also the markets and what's going on and keeping people informed as much as I possibly can. So yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah, thanks for that as well. And from my perspective, a lot of the people in the space don't have the tech background. They've read white papers, they know the buzzwords, they have some kind of vague idea about the business side, but it's very different than actually being in the code and understanding what it takes to develop and launch various applications, because you have a much more realistic understanding of what effort's required.
Yeah, I think it really helps, especially when you're starting to look at a project and try and evaluate it beyond the white paper, because the white paper it's marketing material as much as it is anything else. And so if you look at the white paper and you find, like, why does it work that way? How does this work? What's going on? Then that's a sign that you need to dig deeper before you make an investment in something, because you want to know, is this viable? Is this product going to work despite what they're claiming it'll do? Is it possible?
Yeah, and I think that's a great topic. We're actually going to do a second video follow-up to this video. So check it out. It's going to go up on Hashoshi's channel, which I'll link in the description of this video. And we're going to be talking about altcoins. So definitely, if you guys want to know more about our perspective on altcoins, as far as where they sit right now and which ones we're interested in for the future, definitely go check that out, because that'll be up on Hashoshi's channel. But yeah, as far as the sort of mainstream markets and the Bitcoin general perception within mainstream markets is concerned, we got some really interesting news of late from the Wall Street Journal that said that because of the stimulus, the bear market and mainstream markets, which was all of a few days ago, looking to be cataclysmic, catastrophic, the next Great Depression, people were calling for doom and gloom. And then we got a headline saying that because of a rally directly connected to the Fed printing $2 trillion, we now have a bull market again. Does that make any sense?
Makes no sense, especially because you don't have to be a financial analyst or a financial professional, which I am not, so take it with a grain of salt, to understand that the actual effects of this, the shutdown, even though it's only been a couple weeks, across the US, where things are really starting to close up and people aren't going anywhere. There are companies, like big companies like Subway, that can't pay rent. Like a lot of these companies, they're going to continue to fire people, both in their stores and in their back office. And I think we're seeing unemployment continue to climb at an unprecedented rate. So, I mean, the effects aren't gone regardless of the stimulus. And so I worry that people take that as a dump everything into the market because the losses are over, when all indications tell me that that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple logic, right? That if nobody's going to hotels and nobody's going on flights and nobody's going to restaurants, that there is simply a dearth, like a huge lack of economic activity that printing money just simply can't offset. And if it does, then what does that say about our entire system? That we just, whenever there's trouble, just print the money.
Yeah, and it's concerning across the board, because a lot of these businesses are foundational businesses. Like hotels are foundational to economies locally. You have restaurants that are like extremely, extremely foundational to local economies. Like I live in a small town. If restaurants around here start going out of business, that has a ripple effect throughout the whole town, because it doesn't draw foot traffic the same way. So then all the shops that sell stuff, they don't have people coming in and buy stuff. So the effects are a lot more it's more of a slow burn than I think people realize. It's not like here's a bad day, everything crashes, and then we just come back right away. Like the effects are, over time going to get worse.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Honestly, it's a little bit troubling, right? To see the complete need for full supervision in the mainstream markets. Because if there wasn't this safety net, which I'm glad there is, right? I'm not trying to say, I think there's a big confusion because there is a sort of crypto anarchist dream here that mainstream markets are going to fall to pieces and all that's going to be left in the Mad Max future is Bitcoin, right? And everyone's, and it's like, I don't know if I followed the whole storyline there personally. And I don't want,
that's not me either.
And I don't want mainstream markets to fall apart, right? But I do see inflation and potentially hyperinflation as not measured against each other, because currencies are all having to do this right now. Every country has to print. There's no other way. There's no other way. And so if you take that, each of these paper monies are going to be debasing against each other, then what are they not being devalued against, or what are they actually being devalued against is hard assets, property, Bitcoin, gold. I think you're going to see those asset classes explode in the coming days and months.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I also think that people are comparing this to the 2008 crisis. And I was fairly young during that time. So like, I didn't feel it the same way. Like I had a job, but I didn't feel it the same way that other people would, right?
Yeah.
Because I didn't have as much, adult responsibility, quote unquote, as I do now.
Yeah.
But it's different in that this is a world problem, right? That's created economic cataclysm around Europe, US, Asia, now South America. So it's not like the US is in, I guess, solo having a huge issue. Like 2008 was very much like it was a home front issue where our banking system got crushed and we had like the subprime mortgage crisis.
It was
different.
It was, however, the way that we packaged the debt, sold it to other banks overseas, made it global, because everyone was buying our debt believing it was pretty much infallible, right? They were buying debt from the big banks in America thinking, hey, it's Bank of America, it's Lehman Brothers, right? How are they their debt's good for us. So that was what made it global. Even more so now, literally, physically, we're catching the economic and literal flu from each other. There's never been a pandemic shutdown, so we don't know how to handle this. But we know that by everybody printing money, even in this time, US dollar has strengthened against other currencies, against other fiat currencies. But now it seems like this is really Bitcoin's time to shine, right? This is, if there's ever been a time for Bitcoin to prove out its hypothesis here, that when everything's being printed infinitely, you have a hard capped currency or an asset that's hard capped. I don't know if Bitcoin's fully a currency yet, but I think it's really exciting. You can't help but be a little excited. Having been in this space for almost, you said 6 years now, that you've been coding, and 3 years professionally, you must be excited about the potential for Bitcoin right now.
Yeah, I'm extremely stoked. And I found Bitcoin originally. I was in school at the time, and I was, being the classic millennial student, not paying full attention in class. I'm on StumbleUpon, I'm clicking through, and I come across the white paper. And at this time, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't, I had a lot of interest, but I couldn't figure it out. And Bitcoin was this cool mix of economics, which I was passionate about, as well as technology, which I'm also passionate about. And it really fascinated me. And the idea of a hard cap currency about sound money just kind of took me down the rabbit hole. So over the last 10 years now, I've been, obsessed with this concept. And so I'm excited to see that we now have an opportunity to test this, like you said, to test the thesis that this can be a steadfast global safeguard for people in these times. But I don't love the fact that it is going to hurt a lot of people, this crisis along the way. So it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, I guess what I'm hoping for is that there's a balance, that we have the ability to salvage the main system, right? We don't want banks and insurance and hospitals to fail, right? That wouldn't be good for everyone. Bitcoin doesn't fix that, right? I know people like to say Bitcoin fixes this about absolutely everything, but Bitcoin doesn't fix it if your hospital goes out of business, right? And nurses can't get paid and doctors can't get like that. Bitcoin doesn't fix that yet. Maybe in the future it does. I don't know. But right now, I hope that the stimulus sort of salvages our current system, potentially inflates significantly the value of the dollar, And then we get just this hard asset that proves out with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin can moon without the system failing. And I think that to the tune of 100x wouldn't surprise me at all, right? I could see Bitcoin 100x in this crisis very easily, because that's just getting it to the market cap of gold. And if you're thinking about this new world we're in, Bitcoin, as far as an asset class, is way better, in my opinion, than gold for a reserve asset class. Its fungibility, we don't have to go through all the traits, but obviously if you guys are new, go look up Bitcoin versus gold, and you'll find a lot of exciting and interesting articles showing why Bitcoin essentially does what gold does, even better.
Definitely. Yeah. And you can't mine new Bitcoins on an asteroid.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, I mean, maybe this is a side topic here, but how likely is it that we tow an asteroid to the Earth and it's filled with unlimited gas and precious metals? Like,
I mean, it's mathematically more feasible than I think people realize.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that ridiculous.
I mean, human ingenuity is a crazy thing. You know, something we think is totally impossible and has been for a long time, all of a sudden is one serendipitous discovery away from being feasible. And I know that the Japanese are already working on, mining near orbit asteroids for stuff and then just hauling it back in small quantities. But even small quantities have an impact on total supply. So who knows? I mean, that's another rabbit hole, like you said. But
the point is that gold is potentially limitless in our universe, even in today's just single planet universe we live in of our earthbound nature, gold, we still have no idea how much there is, right? We could tap into another gold reserve that we weren't aware of, a few feet deeper into the earth, and boom, the supply of gold can be, significantly increased. That can't happen with Bitcoin. It's about, I like when Pomp explains that it's about monetary policy, right? When you're buying into Bitcoin, you're buying into an alternative policy. And right now, more than ever, I think you're seeing people wake up to what monetary policy is. Because you had a whole bunch of people that are just like living their lives, stock market's going up, they're getting paid a lot in their job. Oh, they're getting extra bonuses this year because, everyone's paying everybody more and the times are good. Then all of a sudden, the rug gets pulled out, and you hear that they're just, oh, Boeing needs $60 billion. We'll just print it. Oh, we need to just start paying Americans directly. Let's just print it. And all of a sudden people are saying, well, if you could just print all the money, why do you need me to pay you taxes? Right? Government, like why that was a big idea that I think people are first digesting with this context. Why do I need to give you my money out of my pocket if you could just create more?
Print. Yeah.
And there's not a good answer.
It's the first time in a lot of people's lives that monetary policy and how it actually works is being put into the forefront of media. People are talking about it, and people are like, whoa, I think there are a lot of people who don't even realize like that there is a Federal Reserve, that even exists. Yep. And so it'll be interesting to see how that affects people's approach towards crypto, and not just crypto, but alternative asset classes, inclusive of gold, silver, palladium, precious metal stuff. I think it's going to be fascinating.
You know what I find fascinating is the lack of financial literacy across the board. And you have even business experts, right? Because I've been in startup business for almost 11 years now. And you meet a lot of business types, right? People who they know how to put a team together. They know how to do initial funding. They know how to do dilution rounds. They know the nuts and bolts microeconomic side, right? They're so good at setting up the business, getting cash flow, splitting up, getting the investors paid, that types of stuff.
Yeah.
But they have no idea about macroeconomics and how it works. No idea. Is zero. And I think that's actually disturbingly common, where you'll have people who work for Goldman Sachs, who work for these top investment banks. They have incredible acuity at creating cash flow, analyzing businesses, and knowing what to invest in on a micro level. But then they start hearing words like Fed, stimulus, interest rates, these, and they don't actually know they don't understand how the pieces connect. And I think that's disturbingly common. Then you get to the mainstream of people, normal people, zero literacy.
Yeah, and that goes from understanding concepts and what they mean for them, but also how that you need to, regardless of whether or not you're in a time of prosperity or not, that you need to be planning for these types of events because it can happen out of nowhere, right? Like in my opinion, this pandemic was the the main factor, the reason why we're in the position we are economically. But this was a new thing that sort of came out of nowhere for people and threw a wrench in an 11-year bull market. And I think people look back and realize, I had 11 years to be positioning my business or positioning my personal finances or what have you to prepare for this, and didn't, because people don't think about this when times are good.
Yeah, I just did an episode with a top Bloomberg commodities analyst. He specializes in precious metals.
I watched that. It was a good video.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I've been working with Mike for a while now. He actually contacted me because I did a news episode where I covered an article about a Bloomberg analyst who called the 2017 top, and it turns out it was him. And he contacted me on LinkedIn and was just said, "Hey, I'm that guy. Do you want me to come on the show?" And came on. And he was originally extremely, I guess, bearish on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. He even believed at the beginning that they should return to the per ounce price of gold per Bitcoin. And I eventually got him to see that there was really no logic there, and that that it should really be the market cap value of both assets should be comparable, because the per unit value of Bitcoin is arbitrary, right? We could have had 21 million or 48 million or 1,000 trillion Bitcoin. There was a decision made. But over time, his literacy and his understanding, and now his bullishness towards Bitcoin has grown exponentially. In this last episode, he was just so bullish, but he was explaining how zero and potentially negative interest rates are going to influence the future, right? And how Bitcoin is treated, how gold was treated back in the last recession. And it occurred to me that people don't understand what he's saying. People don't understand what he means when he says negative interest rates. So for example, if, there's been talk about the CBDC coming into effect to be how they produce the US dollars required for the stimulus. And in that world, if you had a direct account, not with your local bank, but with the Federal Reserve, essentially the central bank, and there was negative interest rates, that would mean that you would actually get taxed for holding money, right? That you essentially are incentivized to get rid of your money as soon as possible. There's some things that people are having trouble getting their minds wrapped around. But in environments like that, something that's a hard asset, like a property, anything that holds value, would be so highly desired, because it would be holding your money would be literally against your own interest.
Yeah, in a bank, that is.
In a bank, correct. In a bank, or in US dollars, or in cash.
Sure.
Or in anything. Yeah.
And again, I think it's, this isn't to say if you don't know what these things are, like you're a loser, that's not the point. I think it's like, it's that the world is not very good at teaching people these things that they need to know.
Yes.
And like I was having, just general chat with people, with some teachers and people about the education system, because right now we're seeing that curriculum that's taught over weeks and months can be taught in days, when students are given the right mediums and right tools, and you can present them with content in a certain way. And what needs to happen is curriculum needs to move towards micro, macro economics before they get to college and, have to know it, because if you don't go to business school, then you just aren't going to get that. Yeah. If you don't go to economics classes, you just won't get it.
So you're a coder, right? How did you learn to code?
I learned to code because the first place that I started was on my own, but then I only got good at it when I went and I started learning it from someone else. And then what really changed the game for me is when I got a job, and I had to know it. I had to live and breathe it and just make mistakes and learn.
Did you do a boot camp? Did you do online tutorials? What were like sources or mediums that you learned from? Because I'll share my stories after you go ahead.
Cool. Yeah. So for me, my self-learning I did on udemy.com.
Yep.
And I went on GitHub and I looked at projects that I liked, and I just tried to take their code apart and figure out how they did it. And then I ended up going to school for it, which was great. So I got a business degree and a computer science combo, and it really worked out for me.
And compared to your schooling, how important was your self-learning?
I wouldn't be a developer full time if I had relied only on schooling, because the way that they teach programming is fundamental, and fundamentals only get you so far. So you have to learn on your own.
I couldn't agree more. And, when I first began my own journey into development, it started before that. I was always on the operations side of these startups. So, marketing, content, growth hacking, all these things, designing growth funnels, optimizing landing pages, all this stuff. And there is just no academic resource that can teach you what you need to know. You need to be staying up. You need to be following the newest. You need to be following content sources and things like Udemy, YouTube, Twitter. You need to be on Reddit. It's honestly has nothing to do. All the most valuable skills that I have in my life had zero to do with school. So I think you're right. Hopefully this brings into the spotlight what people need to be learning, and we can create or cultivate a generation of financially literate individuals. Not just how to pay your taxes, but what does it mean when the government introduces stimulus? What does it mean? What kind of asset classes become more and less valuable in those conditions? And just like you said, we're not trying to call you out here. If you don't know this stuff, we're not trying to call you out. I don't mean, sometimes my tone, I don't realize, I don't want to make it sound like I'm judging you. I didn't know this stuff until I went and learned it, right? You go learn it, right? And it's very important in these times to understand macroeconomic concepts, interest rates, right? Very important. Understand interest rates. If you're going to do one thing and one thing only, understand what the effect of interest rates are. And of course, inflation is almost a little bit more abstract to grasp because its effects aren't, black and white. But interest rates, go understand them. I think that's, if I was to give you one lesson, it's understand what that means and go look historically at how the economy reacts when adjustments in interest rates happen. Because that's, I think, one of the most important things happening today.
Definitely. I mean, with the time that we have now in terms of, working from home, or if you're, home with the kids, whatever, I think now is a great time to go and just learn a bunch of new stuff, because there's so many opportunities now and there's content everywhere. If you know what you want to learn, you can type it in, you can find it. I can promise that.
Yeah. So as far as, important lessons or important ideas for the next few months of the economy, understanding Bitcoin and macroeconomics and how they fit together, what advice would you give the audience? How are you approaching your investments? Are you buying Bitcoin? Are you, how are you navigating right now?
Yeah. And coming from a background that's very much so, I'm not a trader, I'm a fundamentals guy. I find tech that I believe in long-term, and then my positions are long. Like, I don't day trade, I don't swing, I don't do any of that stuff. It's all long-term view. So I'm just, right now I'm in the mode where once my basics are covered, my mortgage, food on the table, my emergency savings, what's left over is discretionary. And since I'm not going out, not doing much, I put, a split of that discretionary spending into things like gold, palladium, silver, Bitcoin, and then here and there some stocks that I think will eventually come back. But this is money that I'm not expecting to need in the next months or even years. I'm expecting this is money that I'm going to set and forget and keep an eye on, here and there, right? So that's my approach. But I think there are other people who are traders and they like the volatility and all that, but it's all about what your risk appetite is and what your financial situation is, because family comes first.
Yeah, 100%. I think you hit the nail on the head that, I work 14 plus hours a day building this gaming business. I don't have time to sit there and catch every movement on the charts. I don't have the skills, right? And I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to go watch a few YouTube videos and I'll be a crypto trader. It'll be that easy. But they don't realize how high the level is now in crypto trading. If you're not a seasoned, probably multiple year full-time trader, it's going to be hard to compete. You're in an environment of sharks, right? You're in an environment of quant firms and professional trading desks. This is no longer you and just, oh, we're all watching, Ivan on Tech and just trading altcoins. Like, no, there's some big sharks swimming. So I'm like you, I constantly put as much discretionary income as I can into assets that over time should perform well. And nobody's a genius. Nobody knows the future, right? Except in bull markets. Everyone's a genius in a bull market. Everyone's a genius in a bull market. But right now, to me, it's not about knowing which one coin is going to outperform all the others. It's about spreading your bets around to a bunch of assets that are designed well.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And if you believe in it, then naturally that might be something that you would invest in.
Yeah.
And as long as you're taking care of the basics, right, and the things that you need, then your discretionary spending is just that. It's at your discretion.
Yep. Well, I think that, that flows well into our next video, which is going to be on altcoins. And
Yep.
so we're going to start this next video on altcoins now. So if you want to check out the rest of this conversation, do me a favor, go head over to Hashoshi's channel, Hashoshi Crypto YouTube, link in the description. Thank you so much for coming on the channel. I hope you guys got value out of this conversation. Learn about interest rates. Any final words?
My final word would be thank you very much for watching, and really appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, awesome. I look forward to doing more content, and check out the next episode, guys.
Awesome. See you guys on the channel.
Peace.
Peace.